Hey beautiful, how are ya? Welcome to yet another live. I'm Suzanna Kaye and it is day 3 of the Papers Challenge. Let me share this into the group really quickly. I'm so glad that you're here with me tonight. We're going to wait for a few people to join in. We're just a minute or so early, so we've got a couple minutes still. But as you hop on, let me know where you're from and so I can just also see who's on, because I would love to see who's joining me. And let's share this into the group real quick. If it'll let me, there we go. Sorry, it takes a moment to share, but that's just a fact of life, right? All right, so as you hop on, let me know where you're joining from. And if you have been in the challenge or if this is the first that you're hearing about the challenge, that's awesome too, not a problem. I'd love to hear who else here. So Debbie, hi, from Long Island, New York. Hi Debbie, great to see you. Wonderful. We've got a couple more people hopping on. We just now shared it to the group, so everybody should be seeing it in just a moment. All right, tonight, I wanted to talk about that to file folder, and I also wanted to start off talking a little bit about sorting, because I know that this is kind of the point where some of that overwhelm might be setting in for some of you, especially if you've got the larger projects. And I want to make sure that everybody's feeling comfortable and knows kind of how to make it less overwhelming. So those are a couple things that are on my mind tonight, but I'd love to hear from you. Any questions that you have, any comments. This is a conversation, that's why it's a live instead of just a recorded video. So please comment away. I've got my other device here so I can actually read the comments because I'm way too old to see all the way on the camera over there. But I see that Anita's here from Mississippi. Welcome, Anita. I'm glad to see that you're here. And as everybody else hops on, let me know who's on and tell me where you're joining me from, because that's always fun for me to hear. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just double checking everything. Great. All right, so as I mentioned, it was day 3. Right about now is when a lot of people start to get overwhelmed if they have a really big sorting project, and it can seem a little bit suffocating sometimes. This is when we start to hear the most cries for help, which is absolutely normal, right in the thick of it, right in the middle of it. But do not worry, because it is not as bad as you're afraid it is, and there's no deadline. So here's a little bit of help. If you've not already watched the How to Sort video, that's a really helpful video over in the unit section of the Facebook group. If you've already watched it or you've not seen it yet, here's some extra tips for you. As far as sorting goes, and when you start to get overwhelmed, or even when you're looking at the to file folder and thinking about all of the files that you might need to sort in your file cabinet before you can even put new stuff in, whenever that overwhelm starts to come up, think about how you're viewing the project. Are you viewing this as one huge project where everything has to get done within 5 days or within whatever deadline you've set in your mind? And if so, that's a bit overwhelming. Can you break that vision of what the project is down? Because you can still have the goal of completing everything. Just maybe when you're thinking about this part of the project, think about only this step that you're working on instead of the project as a whole. For example, I have worked with clients before. I had this one client who is absolutely wonderful. Her name was Lee, and she literally had an entire storage unit of papers. Talk about overwhelming. But she'd rented a storage unit full of boxes and boxes and boxes of papers that she'd not made decisions on, and she didn't have them filed. They weren't in any order. It was just an overwhelming boxes of paper because she'd gone through a traumatic event, and that was something that she was just not able to process at the time, so she just kept saving everything, right down to receipts from McDonald's and every flyer that came in through the mail. So that seemed like an extremely overwhelming project, and yeah, it is a bit overwhelming when you look at it as a whole, when you look at that entire storage unit. So what we did, I worked with her and we'd pull out one box at a time, and we separated in the storage unit, we moved as much as we could to one side. We cleared off a small space where we could kind of create piles to sort in, and we used blankets to cover up the rest of the boxes so we could not even see them, because thinking about those in addition to what we were doing was too much. So we covered up all of the other boxes. We pull out one box at a time, and we would just work on sorting it into keep or go first. And the only part of the project that we focused on or even thought about was that one box. We did not think about the fact that once that one box was done, there were like 100 more boxes to do, or else we would have given up at the beginning and just burned it all down. And I'd probably be in jail right now. But we focused on exactly that one box at a time, and that, in our minds, was our project. And we did the broad sort. So just like the sorting video talks about, the first step was keep or go. And then once we decided if it was a keep or a go, then we'd sort those piles. We sorted the go into whether it was shred or recycle, and then we'd sort the keep into basically like the action file. Most of it was to be filed by that point because it had been in there for years, but it was, is there an action or does it need to be filed? Then when we got to the to file, once we got to that pile, then we started breaking that down into categories. Now, if you're not done sorting your first laundry basket yet, or if you're not ready to start filing yet, that's okay. You don't need to file anything right yet. If that's an overwhelming thought to file, don't worry about it yet. Worry about whatever stage of the project you are on right now, just like we did in the storage unit. So no matter how overwhelming your project is, you can break it down into that smaller bite. And trust me, you are not alone, and I have seen people come back from the most amazing amount of papers and get past it by just not giving up. They just took those small bites, one small bite at a time, and did that every day or 15 minutes every other day or whatever time they had. They could do small bites of, not big projects, because then they'll burn out and they'll never want to do it again. But they kept doing just small, tiny bites whenever they could. And that way is how they got it out of there. Now, it won't be fast. I'm not saying that it is a fast fix, and it shouldn't be a fast fix. If it was a fast fix, then you would not get that mental change that comes with doing something repeatedly. Making those decisions over and over actually help change your mindset and change how you're thinking about your papers. So you want it to take a little bit of time because you want that chance to have that repetition of thought and make that permanent change mentally, because that's what creates the permanent change in your papers as a whole. So those are just my thoughts really quickly about sorting. And if you are overwhelmed, remember, there is no deadline. Nobody's holding you to a specific deadline. You don't have to file anything yet if that thought is overwhelming. We're going to talk about filing in a little bit, but don't worry about it if it's overwhelming. Just focus on the step that you're on, and whatever step you're on is the right step. All right? Okay. I see that Lisa's joined us here, and we have Carrie. Carrie's here from Mobile, Alabama. Lisa's from Delaware. And Anita has the appointment with the accountant tomorrow. You're covered in papers today. Ooh, that doesn't sound like fun, but it's going to feel so good when it's done, right? I'm glad that you're here, Anita, from Mississippi. If anybody else hops on, just let me know where you're from. I know a lot of the times we don't do as many lives in the evening because not as many people are really able to commit in the evening. By then we're kind of exhausted. So if you're watching this as a replay, in the comments in the replay, I'd still love to hear who hopped on, where you're from, and any comments that you have, because I go back and I check all those comments afterwards too throughout the week. And all of the replays and all of the challenge information will be in the group in the unit section until the end of next week. Hey Cindy, I see Cindy's here from Oklahoma. Hi, great to see you. I see Debbie just hopped on. Welcome, great to see you again, Debbie, too. We've got some of my favorite people hopping on. Brenda's watching. Hi, Brenda, great to see you. Wonderful. Now, there are a couple of things that you'll find in the group. Today, I posted a free download. This is the Conquer Your Papers Challenge sorting checklist. It's in the units section, and it's just a free download. You just click and download it. But if you're getting stuck with sorting and you kind of want a checklist to be able to go down so your brain does not have to think about what you need to do next, this is actually really helpful. Use this, go through this checklist each time you pull out a laundry basket of papers, just go through the checklist with it. And then repeat, rinse and repeat. So that one's free in the group if you've not already seen it in the unit section. And I also have, I believe, the link in the description in this live. Just trying to make it easy for you. I see we have Sharon hopped on. Hi, Sharon. And Bill, welcome, Bill, from South Carolina. And Brenda and Debbie and Diane. Diane hopped on. Fantastic. So if you have any questions at all, please let me know. We just talked about sorting so far and making it a little bit less overwhelming. But tonight I really wanted to kind of dive in. I know today we would talk about the to file folder. And the to file folder can be really overwhelming. Let me know in the comments if you've ever kind of looked at that to file pile or the to file folder in your action file. Let me know how you feel about it. If you feel like your files are ready for it and you just need to file the papers and it's not a problem, or do you feel like your files aren't even really ready to receive any of those papers yet and you don't even know what to do with them? So if that to file folder terrifies you, let me know that in the comments too. So I know a little bit more about how to help you out. I see I've got a wow face. Also give me some love and some likes and all that stuff whenever I say something that you enjoy or that you can relate to. But yeah, let me know how it is for you in the to file folder. What emotions does that bring up? Are you feeling confident or not? And even if you're watching the replay, let me know so that I know a little bit more about how to help you best. All right? Awesome. So as far as the to file folders, anxiety. Within the action file, there's really only one folder that you need to do anything with, and that's your to-do folder. That's the only one where you need to remember to check it or else something bad could happen. You know, every other folder, if you don't check it, if you don't do anything with it right away, nothing bad is going to happen. It's simply going to just have the papers in the folder instead of in whatever their final resting place is. So don't worry too much about those other folders until they're full or causing problems for you. Okay, right now, as you're doing a bigger sorting project, if you have a lot of papers, that to file folder is probably getting pretty big. That to enter and to scan could also be getting pretty big. Sometimes I say even take them out of the action file if they're starting to get too bulky and fill up your action file. Maybe create a box of to file and a box of to enter or whatever bins you have, just so that way it does not feel like it's overstuffed, because that can be a little intimidating. But if you aren't ready to file the papers yet, then don't worry, because there's not a deadline to get them filed. They're not going anywhere. You've already decided that there's nothing that you need to do with any of these papers yet. All right? So don't worry about a deadline for to file. When you're ready to file, then there are some tricks that we can give you. I know Carrie says that she's terrified. She's got files set up, but she's not sure that it's working since it's been about a year since she's used it. Yeah, it can be scary sometimes just even not knowing. I'd encourage you to kind of look through those files and see how bad it is. You might be surprised. It might actually be a pretty functional system that you just hadn't been filing into, and a lot of your fear is just the unknown. But if you look into it and you're like, this is not working at all, that's okay too. It's absolutely fine. Now you just know what your next step is before you file. But I'd say sort your papers first, and then at the point where it causes you more stress to not file than it causes you to put them in a to file box, that's when you'd want to file. So some people like to do all of their sorting first. This is me also. I like to do this. When you've got a big overwhelming project, all of the sorting, do all of it first. Keep or go, and then into really, really broad categories for the file cabinet before you ever start to file. That's one option. You can do that with all the papers. Just make sure that you've sorted all of them. You can even go through the file cabinet. That would take extra time, but that's okay because there's no deadline. This can be a project that you chip away at because it's kind of that buildup of papers, and that's okay. But you can either sort all of them first before you ever even start to file, or what you can do is you can start to build up a to file pile or a folder or whatever it is, and then every once in a while stop the sorting process and then go file what you have. Whichever works for you and your personality type, because there's no right or wrong way. The only wrong way is to not even get them sorted and not know what you have going on, because when you give up, then that's when the terror really like goes deep and then it's absolutely overwhelming. So just keep taking a bite one way or the other. There's no wrong way. Denise says, what happens to all the papers and boxes? This would take forever. And it might. That is okay though, because it did not take a couple days for them to build up. It won't take a couple days for all of the archive papers to be organized and disappear. That would be overwhelming also, and that would burn you out. So you would never want to file again if you were to try to do everything in one day or 1 week. That's why we focus during this challenge on the incoming papers in order to kind of stop the bleeding and not add to the problem. So that way you don't have anything new being added to the paper piles or boxes or into that file system. You can then, once those incoming papers are in a system and they're safe and you know that the important stuff has been separated, then you can chip away at those boxes that are either to sort or the file cabinet that needs to be purged first. Whatever it is, you can take one bite at a time. But yeah, it does sometimes take a very long time, but let it take a long time, because as far as I know, there's nobody waiting for a specific, filing cabinet inspection. So just make sure that you're doing it in a way that's healthy for you and that does not make you hyperventilate, because I know the feeling of wanting to hyperventilate when it feels like it's too much. All right, so some of those boxes, just maybe tuck them away, work on one project at a time. And right now the project's either sorting, or it might be doing a small sort and then a small to file, and that type of system, whichever works for you. All right, Denise? Yeah, so as far as filing goes, you can do the traditional filing cabinet if you'd like. That works really well for a lot of personality types, and it's something that we all sort of know the basic foundation and structure of. But some personality types don't do so well with a traditional filing structure. So if you're a more creative type, I have a personality type quiz. I linked to it in the description within this video. If you want to take your organizing personality type quiz, it's really fun, and then you can get a summary of what works for your personality type as well. Sometimes you'll have more than one type. You'll almost always have two stronger types. Sometimes you'll have a pretty good balance, which means most of the time you can use any of the different structures. It just depends on whatever you feel like and whatever's working for you. But a lot of people will have one strong type and one secondary. And that's what you want to kind of lean towards. After you take the personality test, it'll tell you what type of filing systems and what type of organizing systems work best for you. That's what I would lean towards when you're doing your filing system. So there are other options out there besides just the filing cabinet in an A to Z fashion. A lot of times our administrator types, you like to over-organize a bit, and you might add too many file folders to your filing cabinet, which makes your brain have to engage way too much, and it makes it exhausting to file your papers. And it just is very time-consuming and overwhelming, because then you get decision fatigue very quickly. So if you're the type who is extremely detailed and tends to add a whole lot of folders and subfolders and get really detailed, I'd encourage you to maybe step back a little bit and make broader categories, at least to start with, so you can get them filed. And then you can always go back later once everything's in a good folder that's a basic broad category, and make subcategories out of those. But the first goal is to at least get them in a broad category into your filing system before you start to make too many subcategories. Now, my administrators do really well usually with the A to Z type of filing system. If you're a counselor, then you guys tend to like some of the colors, color coding and grouping things by similar types versus just A to Z. So you might do really well with those colored file folders, so you can easily find your different categories and file within categories. So maybe medical is all blue, and you use blue folders for all the medical type of files within your cabinet. And then within that medical file, maybe you have your medical history, you have, this past year's tax record medical bills, maybe you have, any kind of medical lab results, whatever it is per person, but they're all in blue, and then maybe financials after that. And then financial could be the green folders. and all of your financial information would go there. In those broad categories still, but grouping by color and by category works really well if you're a counselor. It also works rather well if you're an inventor type, but if you're a strongly inventor type and you don't have any administrator in you at all, or if you're even an inventor and CEO type or something like that, then you might actually do best with scanning most of your stuff with really strong file names so you can easily search for it, and just using a file box and not doing file folders, because you're more likely to just tuck away the papers that you really need and be brutal about what you keep, but keep only what you actually need and put it just in a box unfiled and search for it later in that small box than you are to actually file it in folders. Now, I have a workshop that I'll tell you about later that gets a little bit, a lot deeper into that. But think about what systems work really well for you and what your personality type is when you're looking at your file cabinet, because maybe your file cabinet is set up for an administrator type because that's what we're all taught, but maybe you're not that type. Maybe that's not how your brain works. So that can also be helpful. Also, a lot of times we avoid filing, and the idea of going back and forth to file over and over and over, we just put it off. So that's the great thing about having the action file with the to file folder, because then once it's full, it gets filed, and until it's full, you can let it build up, because you'll know it's either in the filing cabinet or the to file folder. It would be nowhere else. So it's okay to use that to file folder and let it fill up before you do a big filing chunk. And then you're batching your time. You're going and you're just doing all your filing in once instead of walking back and forth to the filing cabinet and dreading it and putting it off and not wanting to do all the decisions. And Anita says, decision fatigue is real. Amen. It is so real, and that is the huge problem with overwhelm. You know, when our papers have so many decisions attached to them, then it causes decision fatigue. We put it off, we procrastinate, we get overwhelmed, we feel bad about ourselves, and it just all spirals from there. And that's why the to file folders are the scariest, because we think about them as 100 different little decisions that we don't know the answer to. And surprisingly, you do know the answers to them. You're just not used to asking yourself the questions. So the more you do file and make those decisions, the easier it's going to be. And I have a little trick that I use in order to avoid decision fatigue with filing, and it's called a paper policy. Let me know in the comments if you've ever heard of a paper policy. Maybe you've heard me talk about the paper policy before. If you're a VOP, I actually posted this in the group, but you can make your own. You don't need this template, but this is a paper policy. And this is just a template. You can handwrite one on a piece of scratch paper. But what it is, it's a list of all the decisions you've already made about your papers. And that's the big thing. A lot of times we stress out about our papers because we're afraid of the decisions and of not knowing what either we've decided before, so we're going to be inconsistent, or not having all the information we need. So all of these emotions come up. And if we can take our brain out of our system, and you're going to hear me say that 5 billion times with papers, the more you can take your brain out of the system and tell your brain what to do instead of asking it what to do, the easier it's going to be. So using a paper policy, create your own, or if you're a VOP, it's already posted in the papers section of the group, then this is going to take your brain out of the system. And all it is, it's all my paper decisions, and it tells the document type. So for example, you might write credit card statement, or you might be even more specific, your personal American Express statement. So you'd write what type of paper it is. Then you'd write what your action is. Do you scan it or do you file it? And sometimes you might do both, scan then file, but you're going to decide right now what action you will take whenever that American Express statement comes in. Then after that, you can write down, keep for how long? How long are you going to keep that credit card statement? So this is the time when you can ask yourself the questions and make the decisions, figure out, do you need it for taxes? Is there any time where you repeatedly look back at it? A lot of times people will keep their credit card statements until they've done their taxes, and that's fine. So whatever your answer is, you're going to write down how long you'll keep it for. because that will also tell you if it needs to be in a self-purging file or when you should go through and purge those types of files. Then you're going to write down where you plan to keep it. So if you're scanning it, you can write exactly where you're scanning it to. For example, maybe you're scanning it to Dropbox in the personal file folder, in the folder called financial credit cards or something like that. You can write down exactly where you're keeping it. Or if you're doing it in a paper file, you can write down filing cabinet, financial file, in credit card files. And then there's a spot where you can write notes, because a lot of times we'll have certain things that we might want to do with something when it comes in. For example, a credit card statement, you might want to write down, review it first and make sure there are no errors or something like that. So this is going to help you make that decision one time, record your decision so you will be consistent from now on. Every time that American Express statement comes in, you'll scan it to that same place, you'll file it in that same place, and you'll purge it after that same date, and your brain does not have to activate. I encourage you, as you're setting up your file cabinet, to create a paper policy, or if you're joining the VOPs, download the template or create your own template for your paper policy, because that will relieve like 10,000%. I know that's not actually a real number. That's like bad math, but 10,000% of your overwhelm with filing. It will absolutely make it so much easier because you will already made all those decisions. And then with your paper policy, you can, if you have a filing cabinet, you can put it in the first file of the filing cabinet, or I've even had clients, put it up in the wall right next to their filing cabinet, either with a push pin or a binder clip on a hook. And then that way it's all right there so that you can grab it easily. You can also just keep it right in your action file if you wanted to. You could put it in its own folder. You could put it in the very front of it. You could put it in your to file folder. You can tape it to the front of your to file folder, whatever helps you see what your decision is so you don't have to ever make that decision again. Because we want to take our brain out of the system. It does not always do us a whole lot of good to let our brain really get involved. So less the better. So hopefully that will relieve a little bit of the pressure. Bill says paper policy. I like that idea. Yeah. It's been such a relief for so many people, and I've even used it myself a number of times. And I'm an inventor type, so I'm not the type to really record things and be really detailed with most of my stuff. But it even helped me. So if it helps me, then it's got to help people with the less of a squirrel ADHD brain out there, right? All right, so that is with to file, how to make that a little bit easier. But like I said, if you're still sorting, then don't even worry about filing yet. You're not on that step. It's okay. There's no deadline to get this done. You can do that step next week, next month, next year. If you're still sorting in a year. You probably won't be, though. If you're taking a bite a day, I can almost guarantee that you won't be. Even that storage unit did not take a year. But I promise, when you're ready for that step, it will be there for you. You can create your paper policy now while you're sorting so you can make the decisions if you want, and you'll have all that information for you when you're ready. But do not pressure yourself so much. It did not take a day to get there, to get to where you got with your papers. It won't take a day to get back out, and that's okay, and it's actually a good thing because, like I said, you want that time and that repetition in order to get your brain used to these decisions over and over. So it's kind of a forced learning for your brain that you're doing, and it works out wonderfully, believe it or not. So yes, if anybody has any questions, then please let me know. I'm going to also be talking about, real quick, an overview of what I do with my important papers. A number of you have heard me talk about this before. A number of you already have this, which is awesome. I love it. It's one of my favorite things that I get to do and I get to share. But we're going to head into how I keep the most important information secure, because if this is something that you want to do, I want, as you're sorting, for you to kind of think ahead with, is this the system that you want to build, or what type of system do you want to build for the most important of information for yourself? Make sense? Maybe not. I don't know. It's been a long day. So this is what I use For my most important information, it's called the Spark Life Binder. You can either make your own or you can get one from me that's a download so that it's already created for you. But in the Spark Life Binder, this is where I keep the information that would be really horrible if I did not have, and it's also how I keep track to make sure that I have everything that I need for my life, basically. So it covers pretty much everything. The Spark Life Binder here, I actually put a link in the description. If you'd like, you can buy one now. If you wanted to learn more, I actually have a workshop that will walk you through not only this and the foundations of this, but how to build your own if you did want to take the time and build your own from scratch. Maybe you don't have the funds for it, or you just really enjoy putting this together, that's fine. Then in the description, there's a link, and I added on a Saturday workshop, which I don't normally do. So if you wanted to join that and learn more about this, learn more about the foundations that make a system like this work, and pretty much most organizing systems when it comes to paper, some of those foundational ideas are in there, then you can sign up for that workshop. It's free. But this is the table of contents for the Spark Life Binder. And as you can see, it has the major categories for your life. So first off, I do an emergency folder. My emergency folder is a separate quick grab folder. So that way, if I have to run out of the house because of an evacuation, or if there's an ambulance ride happening, then I can grab it and go and not have to bring everything about my entire life with me, because that's also not the safest thing to do. So I've got the emergency folder that has all the medical information and all the quick grab stuff. And then I have in my main binder basic information. So that would be for each person, all of the identification numbers, your most important information, all your basic information about yourself. Medical is section number 2. In the medical section, I like to make sure to keep track of who our current medical providers are, any medical tests that were performed, any medical history, anything like that. All of that's in the medical section, and I do one section per person. So medical history documentation, any specialists that we might have, even optometrist, everything like that. Section 3, I do end of life arrangements. This one is really, really helpful, because if something were to happen to you, then a lot of times I see families stressing over what somebody preferred when they passed, and then it causes so much anxiety because we all want to make sure to do what they wanted done, but we don't always know what it is that they want. So end of life arrangements helps you communicate to your family what's important to you and what your preferences are, as well as just make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. So you've thought about things. If you have a prepaid funeral plot, then your family would know. All of that type of information is in the end of life arrangements. Anita says that she's getting older these days. The Spark Life Binder is what I'm working on, so my son has all the information he would need for my estate. Yes, right? The Spark Life Binder, as you know, because you have one, the Spark Life Binder is definitely a great way to let your family know everything that they might need to know. It's been used so many times. Finance and insurance is another section. So within here, a lot of times I'll photocopy the front and back of credit cards and bank cards. I'll put all the financial institution information, any investments I have, cash assets. Maybe I've got $1,000 hidden underneath the mattress. It's probably a good idea for me to tell somebody. So if something happened to me, then in here it would probably, they would see that, oh, there's an envelope with $1,000 cash under the mattress. Insurance policies, it would let me know who my current beneficiary is, what the policy numbers are, who I can contact, all of that. Then there's real estate and personal property. So real estate and personal property would include some, a listing for each property that you own, but also I like to do a personal property inventory of my home in case of, fire or some form of damage or theft. Then you could do a police report in case of theft and insurance claims. You would have all the information that you need. So personal property inventory is really helpful. It also lists whether you have a storage unit or a safe deposit box and what the information is for that. I don't know how many of you had a storage unit and then realized I have the keys, but I don't remember what the password is to get through the gate or anything like that. That would also help you out a lot if you ever forget things like that, and help your family if something were to happen and they would know that it even exists, because a lot of times we don't know if somebody has a storage unit until, way past the date. Legal and official records is one of the sections. So it has legal information, any of that important, who your estate attorney might be, all of that type of stuff. And then I also have a section with pets and all of the information about pets, passwords, memorabilia, all that life stuff that would be important for not only you to keep track of. If you have really important passwords, you can keep them in there. So that way, if you forgot like your Apple password or your computer password, it's in there. But also, all of the pet information and passwords for if something happened to you. Now, within here, I have like a big checklist that I include with the Spark Life binder. You can create one for yourself as well. And it just lets me kind of keep track of what I already have, what I filled out in the binder, what I found in the file cabinet, and I can check it off as I go. But it also helps me make sure, do you have a living will? Well, the checklist will remind you. If you've never heard of a living will before, then you're going to come across that and look into it and see if maybe that's something you need, or a guardian designation maybe. Things like that. It's a good thing to kind of use to make sure that you have everything that you could possibly need as you set your life up to protect your assets and protect your family and all of that. So this is what it looks like. It's a PDF actually that I just print out. I hit print, and then I can fill it in by hand because I am more of a paper person when it comes to filling things in, but I'm a digital person when it comes to storing them. So this is just one example from one page of the medical folder. It's over 60 pages of things to fill in and spark your thoughts on what is important to actually record. But within the PDF, it's actually a fillable PDF as well. So you can just type in your answers on the PDF if you'd like to and save it on the PDF. I do that as a backup. Whenever it starts to get too messy from my handwriting, then I open up the PDF. I actually keep it on a USB drive that just clips right in. I open up the PDF. I type in the information that I've scribbled all over the page. I print out that nicely typed version of it, and I can print out just that page, or I can reprint the whole binder if I just redid all of it. And then I can save that PDF as a backup. And I usually save it to LastPass, which is an online password management site, so it's super secure. And I have the copy on the USB. So that way I have a couple copies whenever I travel. With LastPass, I can get it anywhere I am in the world. If I was traveling to Germany, then I could always open it up if I needed to and find whatever I needed in a moment's notice, which is really helpful if there was an emergency. Then I could tell somebody anything they needed to know. But that way you also have a backup. So that fillable PDF is super helpful, but if you're a paper person, you can just hit print. But like I said, this is something, I spent over a decade researching and setting this up, so it's extremely comprehensive. I have everything that you could possibly think of in the Life Binder already ready for you to just fill it in and take your brain out of that equation again. You don't have to think about what you might need. It's already listed for you that this is the information that you need. And as important papers come in, you can fill in the binder. You don't have to make that into a project. I say usually fill in the emergency folder first, because this is something that if something happened, then you would want to make sure to have that with you in an emergency. You can hand it to the paramedics if the ambulance came, or if you go to the hospital, it would have all of your current prescriptions, any allergies that you have that are life-threatening allergies. All of that information can be in your emergency folder, but after that one, there's no rush. So as you're sorting papers, it's great to have right next to you, because then as you come across that insurance policy, before you put it in the to file folder, you can just handwrite the policy information, the beneficiary information, the insurance company name, the phone number for the insurance company, and then where it will be filed if you want to. If you wanted to save that insurance policy and file it, then great. You don't have to put the whole policy in the binder with it if you don't want to. Because if you do some of those really bulky things, then it gets a little heavy and cumbersome. So I usually just list, it's in the file cabinet in the insurances file, or you can leave where it's going to be stored blank if you're not sure yet. But as important papers come in, then just write them into your Spark Life Binder. So keep the Life Binder next to you as you sort. So that way, as you come across the papers, you can just be filling it in. And that's the only reason why I tell you about it right now in the challenge, because you are kind of in the thick of sorting and you're about to start filing some of the things soon or soon-ish whenever you get to that step. It's nice to have that Life Binder already just printed. You buy it and just hit download and print, and then just stick it in a 3-ring binder, and that's all you have to do. And as you're filing or as you're sorting, just fill things in as you come across them. And don't make it into a big project, because the last thing we need is one more project, right? I don't know about you, but I know I've got enough projects in my life. I don't want to add another one on, so I try to make it as easy as possible. And those incoming papers are perfect. As you come across them, you just fill it in, and you don't make the binder a project. It will fill itself in over time if you just, whenever an important paper comes in, you fill it in then. So like I mentioned in the description, I did include a link to the workshop. I've got one this Saturday, which is my only weekend one that I'm doing. I'm only doing it because we're doing the challenge. And I've got one during the week next week. So you can pick between them, whichever one works for you, if you wanted to learn more about the Spark Life Binder, including the foundations in setting up a binder and why mentally it works and kind of, what makes it different. But also, if you did want to try to build your own, that's fine. You can take that workshop and see exactly step by step how you would build your own, how you would keep it secure and store it. That's a big thing. If you buy the Spark Life Binder, it comes with a whole video series of quick little videos that will walk you through all of that as well. But if you did want to watch the workshop and ask your questions or anything like that, then you're able to sign up for that workshop, ask all of your questions, see how you can store it and back it up and keep it safe and how it really works. So there you go. If you have any questions, let me know. But that's all I have to say about that. You guys are doing amazing. I'm absolutely loving everything that you're doing with the challenge. You're supporting each other so beautifully. I would love it if in the group, make sure to find anybody's post, if somebody's posted, and just comment on it and tell them that they're doing a good job and, encourage each other. You're already really, really, really good about it. And I love seeing all of that in the group, because that's what's going to help some of us keep going. I know that there are several people who have hit that overwhelmed point and they could just use a virtual hug. So if you could reach out and virtually hug a few people today in the group, let them know that either you understand and you've been there, maybe you've gotten past it, or maybe you're still in the thick of it, and the two of you can talk about possibly burning down the filing cabinet and drinking wine and laughing like a maniacal person. That's okay. But connect with each other in the group, because that's the whole point of the challenge. If you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments what you thought, if there's any questions that you have. Right now, also, when you get the Spark Life Binder, you do get the free 1-hour workshop that walks you through setting up your file cabinet. It's called the Ultimate Papers Workshop, but it walks you through step by step of setting up your file cabinet for your personality type. So you'll do, it's got the personality types that are mentioned from the quiz, and I give you a download with exactly what folders to put in your file cabinet, how to label them, what order to put them in for your file, your personality type, and we talk really in depth about how to decide on keep or go, what type of papers you want to keep and for how long, what should be shred versus just recycled. We go into creating self-purging files, which are awesome. Those are files that clean themselves out automatically. It's like magic. So when you grab your Spark Life Binder, Anita, I think you grabbed yours recently, so you already probably have the Ultimate Papers Workshop, which is happening next week, and then you'll get that workshop if you grab your Life Binder before the end of the weekend. So that's it. I love you guys so much. You've been absolutely fantastic this week. Please just remember, there really is no deadline. I'm not going to come to your house and check to see if your filing cabinet is in order. I'm not going to, even ask you if you've got all of your sorting done and give you a stink eye if you haven't. I just want you to keep moving forward with a small bite and keep focusing only on the small bite. So don't look at the project as a whole. Don't look at the filing cabinet at all if you're not even there. I don't want you to even think about it. Think about just the step that you're doing and just keep doing that step. Because if you do, then it's a lot less overwhelming and you're more likely to actually get through it. And if you do grab your life binder, super easy. Don't worry about making that a big project. Just when you buy it and you get the download, just click print. And then you can 3-hole punch it and throw it in a binder, but don't make it a big thing. Whenever you have time and feel like it, you can make it prettier. You can add dividers and pockets and all that stuff. And I tell you in the videos that come with it what you can do with it, but don't make it a big project. Just print it, throw it in a 3-ring binder and have it next to you so you can be using it right away versus having to look up the information later or wait for it to come in later. It's so much easier to just be filling it in now as you're going along. So Anita says yes, that she does have the Ultimate Papers Workshop. That's fantastic. I'm so excited about it. I love that workshop. So it's coming up. So can you tell I'm excited? Anyway, you're doing really good. I love seeing you in the group. Please keep sharing all of your fantastic photos and your struggles and your wins and your experiences and your ideas, and comment on each other's, answer each other's questions. I am not the only one who knows anything here. You guys are all absolutely brilliant. You've been there before. You have great ideas. So help each other out, answer each other's questions, and you're all just, you make me happy. I hope you have a fantastic night. Check out the links in the description. If you're in the replay, please comment. Let me know how you're doing with everything and what you thought of this. Anita says, life and sometimes death intervenes. I started in the fall, had to put it on the back burner. Now I can return to sorting. Yeah, and you know what? That's okay. I think that if you're in the middle of sorting right now and it's a huge project, maybe plan some breaks. Maybe you take a season off and that's okay. Because if you've got your action file set up and all the incoming papers are being captured, then nothing is going to keep adding to that pile. So you can just take your time going through the sorting and eventually you will get through all of it. I promise, as long as you just don't give up, you can take breaks and care for yourself though, mentally, physically. Make sure to celebrate your wins, take it slow, and do it at your own pace. So that's great, Anita. I'm glad that you did take a break. And now you're probably a lot more refreshed and energized and ready to tackle it some more. So brilliant. I love it. Sharon says, thank you, Suzanna. You're so welcome, Sharon. I love seeing you all. I will see you all in the group. If you have any more questions, post them in the comments. I'll see you probably live at least one more time before Monday. I'll let you know whenever I do schedule another live, and I will talk with you soon. I love you. Have a wonderful night.